We'll go ahead and start to say hello. My name is Alondra Palomino. I'm the Partnerships Manager here at Minute. I'm joined today by my colleague and musician extraordinaire, Nathan Smith. He is the head of enterprise sales at Minute. We've also got Sean Ballin, yes, correct? Yes.
Ballin, but close.
Ballin.
Very close.
Oh. So sorry.
Okay.
All
We
right,
psyched ourselves out saying all the different versions of it before we
Uh,
jumped online to this. There's our problem.
Sean from Beckon Homes. There we go.
There you go. That's all you need to know.
We've also got Tyler Herndon from StellarDweller. Thank you, Tyler, for being with us today. So while we're waiting, let's also kind of go through where we're all joining from, because we've got quite an eclectic group here. Nathan, do you want to start first?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm in the Ozarks in Northwest Arkansas. We were actually just talking about it before we all jumped on here and went live about the area and how it's surprisingly got some really cool features and a decent short-term rental market, actually, because it's well known for mountain biking and has some amazing trails and some competitions that we host. So yeah, that's where I am.
Sean?
So my name is Sean Ballin. I'm the COO and co-founder of Beckon Homes, where I'm actually located on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, where we service this area in the South Shore of Massachusetts, but we're actually headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. It's where we started and our biggest market. We also work over in the Smokies, in Gatlinburg, Sevierville, et cetera, and out in Tahoe and a couple of other markets as well.
All right, Tyler, where are you joining from?
I'm in Destin, Florida, Santa Rosa Beach area. Primarily, we manage properties on Okaloosa Island. And yeah, it's beautiful. Seems like every day here. It's kind of the mecca. We almost think of it as the mecca of short-term rental down here. Everybody seems to live and breathe vacation rental down here.
It seems like the place where it's just sunny, warm. You know, the weather, people probably have a fairly standard weather report for most of the year.
Exactly. Yes.
It sounds like heaven. Well, and I'm joining from Madrid, Spain. So no beach to talk of, sadly, but lots of tapas, lots of wine, lots of fun things to do here. So I think, though, yeah, we've got quite a few people who have joined us already. Let's go ahead and get started. We've got a few things to cover today. All right, so I think we can all see my screen, correct? Perfect. All right, so Sean and Tyler, before we kind of jump into the nitty-gritty, I'd like to ask each of you to tell us, a little bit about your business and your tech stack, and specifically how the solutions integrate with each other. So I don't know if Sean or Tyler, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, happy to. Oh, thank you. So our main hub for our tech stack is our PMS. We use Guesty for that. That's a lot of everything kind of talks through there, or it talks through Slack. So that's how our internal team communicates. Aside from that, our ops team uses Operto Teams. And then we also use Minute for our noise monitoring and Brevo for our smart home tech for thermostats and locks. And then we also do the exterior ring cameras for everything there.
Yeah, with us, so we manage about 80 units in the Destin, Fort Walton, Santa Rosa Beach, this Panhandle area. And just like Sean, we use Guesty for our PMS. That's our property management system, which is our core. And then we connect all our integrations, call it our tech stack in the industry, with APIs. And so for our operations, first and foremost, we use Breezeway. And then for our dynamic pricing, we're currently using Wheelhouse. And then one of our favorite pieces right now that we're using is Host AI, which everybody's buzzing about AI in every space. And in this space, it's almost no difference. At all the conferences, they've been talking AI this, AI that. And that's allowing us to do a lot of different things, and from messaging to creating tasks, and being able to push different tasks to Breezeway per se. And of course, we use Minute, and for our locks, we use remote locks. And we're pretty tech heavy, and I would say labor light. We try to be as lean and mean as possible in any industry to kind of give us a cutting edge and advantage. That's kind of where we're at. I might be missing a few. I guess for our guest experience, we're currently using SuiteOp, and so that kind of helps with everything and helps integrate everything together. So we have quite a few, and I'm probably missing a few.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But that's the bulk of them.
I'll add to that, actually, for guest experience, we use DAC for that kind of interface that also gives us upsell potential.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you both for giving us such great insight. I think, for us, it was really important to provide two different perspectives of, the systems that property managers are using, because there's so many options out there. And I think often people kind of get overwhelmed and try to figure out, what's the best system for me. So that's in part why we wanted to have this specific webinar, is to talk about, some of the options out there, give two real life examples of property managers who are successfully using technology to really generate, ROI from their technology. So it gives us a great starting point to launch and kick off this discussion. Now, we've heard of where your tech stack is today. I'm curious, can you walk us through on the way your tech stack has evolved since you started your business, and when did you start your business?
So we started back in about 2013, and we were pretty early to the scene in Nashville, in our home market. So back then, there wasn't a lot of tech in this space. So we eventually wound up with our property management software, and then we kind of gradually added aspects of our tech stack as we needed it. So as security became an issue, we started getting lock automation and cameras and all of that. So it was really just taking a moment and checking, what do we need at each moment, because we are, as Tyler said, we're tech heavy as well. But the other thing is, so much of the tech in this space evolves so quickly. So our team actually audits our tech stack probably about quarterly to see what new integrations are out there. And that's kind of eventually why we wound up with Minute, for example. But we really take that seriously, because once we start automations, I don't really want to unravel them unless I have to. But things are new things are coming along all the time, feature adds, things like that. And I want to make sure that our team is using them to their full potential.
Yeah, what about you, Tyler?
So with us, we first got, I'd say, our tech with our locks back in 2016, and that was with remote lock. And just like Sean was saying, there wasn't a lot of tech back then, and there's still not a mass amount. It's growing, it seems like, weekly. And the big thing is API and being able to connect. And that's why we chose to go with Guesty, because of their marketplace and being able to connect those different APIs and being able to have options and move quickly. And really right now, for us, it's the most important to be able to have all those different softwares to communicate with each other, to be able to maximize the features. And so that's where we're working with now, two-way APIs, making sure that different companies can communicate with one another to be able to have the latest features. Right now, I briefly mentioned it, that the AI that we're using right now is actually combing through all of our messages and our reviews to then be able to pick apart if the guests have said, for instance, hey, the toaster's not working. It will then create a task that we can assign to a team member to make sure that gets fixed, so nothing's being left unturned. There's properties with no issues, and if there is an issue, it's being addressed immediately. And this is something that we've never had, and it's brand new, and we're able to take advantage of that new tech because we're set up.
That's amazing. It sounds like you're living in the future. It's like it just happens so quickly that like, nope, we're on it. You know, where our AI has picked up on it and we're on top of it.
Exactly. With that, I might as well add one of the features being able to be on Guesty and use companies like Minute. It's that messaging to where the automation that Sean was also talking about. So sending automated messages to guests is huge. And with using Guesty, Minute has that integration with Guesty. So if we need to, it's sending automatic messages out to guests. And so that's huge. Just being able for all of these different tech companies to be able to integrate through open APIs is where we see the most value.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's actually a pretty good. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I might be shifting us forward. So if you want to jump in with what it was, then feel free. I was going to just say that's a decent segue into the next thing that we had planned to talk about, where we talk about how we're, in analyzing that data that comes from those types of things. So for me, I work with our customers day in and day out as they're considering using Minute, and things like the automation are some of the things that provide that ROI, which I know is what we're talking about today. And hearing their stories about like the horror stories of before they've used the right technology, whether it be Minute or remote locks, which I know we'll talk about. It's important to be able to track that and analyze, is this actually paying off for us? Is this technology that we're paying for worthwhile? Is it giving us the right kind of ROI? So I think for us personally, it's easy to see in stats like the very first automated message that we send out to guests on average tends to quiet a noise event 90+% of the time. I think right now it actually sits at 94%. Those are the types of data points I think that show a clear ROI, but I'm interested to hear from both of you, and Sean, you can start. How important do you think those types of analytics are as you are reviewing quarterly, which technologies to either keep using or which to add?
I mean, the analytics are essentially what's telling us whether it's working or not. And if we're going to make the investment in the tech, not only the financial investment, but the training of my team's time, because I have, I really respect them enough to say, hey, if I'm going to make you learn something new, I don't want to just pull it away. So I want to make sure whatever we are implementing is the thing that's going to work best. I know we talk a lot about the analytics and the tangibles, but the truth is that so many of these pieces of tech have things that we can't even put a measure on. Things that, whether it's stopping, if it's stopping damage to a property, that's very easy to see. If it's retaining a client and they say it's because of that piece of tech, well, yeah, that's absolutely measurable ROI. What we don't see are the things like, did a place lose its ability to rent because, it had too many flags on its permit in a certain market, and that not only loses us the property, but it loses the client and our reputation, and that's immeasurable.
And what about you, Tyler?
Yeah, so as far as the reporting and measuring, I'm thinking of, in this industry, I'm thinking of reviews. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And I know it's kind of sad, but this industry is judged by reviews. It makes or breaks your business at this point. And so nothing is more important to us than reviews. And we use a software called Riva, which analyzes and gives us reports just on our reviews. So it breaks it down for the property, it breaks it down for what cleaner is doing it, ties this all to the guest. And that gives us a good measurement, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like bad reviews go hand in hand with bad properties. And with the amount of supply that is coming to the market right now, you're going to have to set yourself apart from everyone else. And with this maturing industry, you need to, it's going to be kind of trimming the fat per se, and put the winners and the losers apart. And this is what's going to be able to put you to that advantage, is having advanced data analytics and reporting. And it kind of goes with, I'm putting it down here. I kind of wrote that, you know, the bad reviews go hand in hand with bad guests, and bad guests attract bad properties. You know, they all kind of go hand in hand. And so we try to get a handle on that before it starts. And we want to have good properties with good guests and get good reviews. And that's a way to really be able to make sure that we're on top of it and we can make that happen.
So it sounds like for both of you, data analytics and going through, the information that you're seeing from this technology, it's something that you do regularly. I know, Sean, you mentioned you have your team go through it quarterly, right? To do like different demos and see what else is out there. But I'd imagine it's part of the day-to-day for much of the team, is just going through and using the technology to the best of its ability to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, as Tyler said, you're absolutely right. I mean, reviews are the kind of the lifeblood of whether a property will rent or not. But we also utilize guest analytics as well. So we're able to see, it goes pretty in depth as far as booking analytics, and that lets us see, what kind of average nightly rate we're getting, what kind of occupancy we're getting, compare that quarter versus quarter, year over year, and see some broader strokes. We can experiment with different things in our listing, experiment with different, whether it's new photos or furniture upgrades or things like that. We're able to really see those concrete measurements.
Great. All right, let's go ahead then and go on to our next question. Can you give us an example of any successful use case of guest experience technologies amongst your properties or customers? Sean, you look like you have a fun story.
I mean, we can definitely trade war stories for a little while, but we can go down a deep rabbit hole that way. So we've had a couple of things, and I'll limit it. But so for a while in Nashville, the crime rate was spiking. And we kept trying to figure out what is going on here. Why is this, is it a post-pandemic thing? What is it? And we implemented the auto lock feature on our lock system. All of our break-ins ended. It was really that simple. It was as simple as guests were leaving the properties unlocked, and people there knew which units look like short-term rentals, and they would just go. I actually have video footage from our Ring cameras of them going door to door, and if a door was unlocked, they walk right in. And so it seems like such a no-brainer to just lock your door, but that's what that was. But I have another instance in particular where Minute kind of came to the rescue, and it really saved us at a property in this market. We have this beautiful home just south of Plymouth, Massachusetts, that we manage, and it has a heated pool and all of those things. And for whatever reason, this guest, this group decided to throw a rager of a party. It's not something we see very often because our hospitality team is so great at checking guests and making sure there are no red flags. I see the chatter all the time, making sure that we're not renting to people who are high risk. But in this instance, we started seeing noise alerts. And as Nathan mentioned, 9 times out of 10, after that first alert, everything quiets down. We don't even it doesn't have to ping our team or anything. It's just done, just handled. In this instance, that didn't matter one bit. But what we did have was all of the noise data, the count of people, the occupancy data that Minute was giving us. We coupled that with our Ring cameras on site, and we were able to see, like, look, this is really going down here. And we had to send a team member and unfortunately escalate it. But that's what gave us the ability to to interrupt this from happening. And instead of it raging all night long and disrupting the neighbors, because this is a residential neighborhood, we were able to stop all of this. And within a matter of time, we had to evict the guest, which is something we almost never do. But that, if we hadn't had all that data, we wouldn't have been able to see that it was going on, first of all, but then on top of that, we wouldn't have been able to file the appropriate claims against the guest through our damage protection program at Guesty to recoup any of the damages that happened.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it sounds like you had, it's not only like the data that you need to know what action to take, but you also need data sometimes afterwards to be able to take action. So we're happy that we were part of that story and helping to ensure that it didn't get too out of hand. Tyler, what about you? Yeah. Do you have any minute or
very similar
related experiences?
Yes. So very similar to what Sean was saying, and with the stats that Nate shared, that 9 out of 10, even higher than 9 out of 10, you'll see it. And being able to set that expectation for a guest. And what we've noticed is that guests who are going to break one rule usually are going to break more than one rule. So what we see that if a guest is going to be loud, that guest is probably going to stain a sheet as well. So being it, and that's our biggest issue in this industry currently, are stained linens. And so if a guest is getting loud within 10 minutes, ours is set at 80 decibels. So if a guest is going to be loud at 80 decibels for 10 minutes, not only do we get a notification, but the guest gets a notification. And within another 10 minutes, we're going to know that guest is either quieted down or it's continued. And it's that 9 out of 10 we're talking about, the issue has been handled just completely by automation, 100%. And then we have to then, on that less than 10%, then contact the guest, or we get another notification that says, hey, it's continued, and then we'll continue to monitor the situation. We don't get them often now, but if a party does happen and it gets out of hand, we have to go there. But in the last year, it's happened once, and we were notified before it got out of hand. And that is, I would say, post using Minute. Before Minute, how it would be is we would have no idea, and we would have to find out from either a neighbor or the owner, both of which is not good. And you're finding out at like 3 a.m. in the morning, the last time you need to find out. And at that point, it's gotten way out of hand. And so I would say through this technology primarily, we've been able to just prevent anything from happening. This is, I would say, more than anything, a preventative measure. And we can run through numbers here, later, but really preventing other damages, not just from parties, but then like those rule breakers, like stains, for instance, and how that's changed.
Yeah, I've had a very similar experience, Tyler, especially with those messages. That's been one of the reasons that we actually even went with Minute to begin with, that we're able to do these custom scripted messages. So the first one isn't just, hey, keep it down. It's, hey, we hope you're having a great time. We've noticed you've been loud for a little bit, but we'd love, we can put our spin on it. Our brand as a company is very important to us, and our voice is something that we train our hospitality representatives on. So, it can then increase in severity as we need it to, but it doesn't have to be like, oh, the baby was crying for 10 minutes and I'm in trouble. It can be a little bit softer to begin with.
Bingo. Exactly. Fully agree.
Definitely great use cases. Thank you both for sharing. Now let's talk about the ongoing maintenance and support costs and how they factor into the overall ROI calculation for those technologies. Can you give us an example of, how, do you have any best practices for property managers to minimize these costs? Or how have you found that technology helps to minimize these costs?
Sure. As Tyler mentioned, we both seem to be similar in the sense that we're leaning hard on our automations and minimizing the number of times that people actually have to touch these devices, and whether it's virtually or in person. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the training with our team is a factor with this. So if the installation of a product, whether it be a lock or a noise sensor or anything on site, if it's going to be labor intensive, that's kind of a deterrent, because if I have a maintenance rep, like someone on my maintenance team who are some of our higher billed people, if they're on site and it's glitching and not working and they can't seem to get it figured out, then that's hours of billable time, billable in the sense of it's coming out of our company's bottom line, going into all of that. But if it's the installation process is great, it plugs in, or the battery lasts forever, or whatever it may be that way, that saves our team the time, the stress. And we all know that there are definitely stressors in this business where we're getting, our adrenaline spiked periodically, and I want to do everything I can to minimize that for our people. So really having all of that pared down and figured out really makes the biggest difference. And I do measure that as far as whether it's a maintenance rep who needs to go on site or one of my QC team. So it's really easy to see those stats and how much a device costs as far as labor.
What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, with us, it comes down to efficiency and how to be most efficient. So with our task management, we use Breezeway, and what we do is we pair as much as possible our maintenance task with our inspections. So we never have a maintenance task without an inspection. We make sure those are always together, just to maximize that type of efficiency and monitor the cost. One, I'll just use a new feature that you guys have, which is the swap feature. So before, I think from talking to Sean, most of his minute sensors are plugged in, which are great. We do not. With all of ours, we use the battery, and they die. With us, we use a lot of the features. It can be about 9 months, but they do have to be charged. And before, we were having to take them out, charge them, put them back. Now, you guys just released a new swap feature, so we can literally go in, just hold the device next to another device, and it knows switch the charged one for the non-charged one. And so, talk about ROI calculation and being able to save time. That's been huge. Before, what we had to do was sometimes we'd have to leave, because we would only be able to do this maintenance task in between guests. And so we would actually have to leave a property unmonitored for a few days. But now with the swap feature, it totally handles that. So I would say, yeah, just with our Breezeway and being able to maximize features, that's how we're able to kind of calculate our overall ROI.
Thank you. Yeah, and I can promise you guys that we actually didn't tell them, and we haven't given them any incentive to actually talk about Minute. It's just, they just love us so much that they're singing our praises, which we appreciate. So I did want to ask, I know we just talked about, how you track ROI, but have you found anything that helps you in your day-to-day? Like, do you use an Excel sheet to track, how much are these tools costing? How much ROI are they generating, or what kind of time are they saving me? What do you use internally?
I mean, we honestly don't have to do that much to see how it's saving us. We I pull all of our labor reports from Operto teams, so I'm able to see, month for one versus the following month, how much we're actually spending labor wise, and then of course we reconcile our expenses each month. So it doesn't take much to see the difference that it's making.
Tyler, what about you?
Yeah, so some of the tools that we use to kind of track our financials, we use QuickBooks. We use a software called Clearing for our trust accounting, which really is the bridge between our PMS, Guesty, and QuickBooks. And then the maintenance tasks, which have all the prices associated with them, are being pushed from Breezeway to our PMS, which can then go into QuickBooks and be reconciled with the clearing software. So we're able then to kind of track everything as meticulously as we possibly can. There's no finite nitty gritty to get completely down with the reporting. But I would say those are kind of the tools that we use to monitor that.
Yep. That's very helpful. Thank you. So I know we talked about a couple of intangibles, right? So what do you think are some of the ways that property managers measure less tangible advantages of using these tech upgrades? We talked a little bit about how they save time, how they save labor costs. I'm curious, do you see any other intangible advantages? I know previously we talked about how you get buy-in from your clients, for example.
Absolutely. We've actually integrated the tech part of our tech stack into our sales process. So very often when I'm having a conversation with a potential client, we look for the things, as you said, this is a very full space as far as property management. So we're looking at the things that differentiate us and our team. So when people ask, well, what do you do to take care of my property that may be different than another manager? We do bring up things like our lock automation, Minute, things like that, doing exterior cameras, and the positive reaction I get back from those conversations is honestly immeasurable. People are really impressed by that forethought and the fact that we're not just taking care of these reservations, we're also taking care of a large asset, whether it's someone who it's their first major investment outside of their own home. So it's really the largest asset they have outside of the place they live, versus even an institutional investor who is going to have, they are going to be looking at ROI and all of that, but they're really, they are looking at more of an asset appreciation play rather than just a revenue play. So knowing that we are looking after their property to the best of our abilities, mitigating risk and all of that, making sure that it's not getting damaged. And honestly, our team also looks for ways that we can improve the property and upgrade it. And then, at the end of the day, they have a pro forma that shows that it's getting a great revenue, and also that capital appreciation is boosting. So that's really, that's a huge selling point in our sales process.
Yeah, it sounds quite like a thorough process indeed. So you mentioned, not only are you helping to protect their investment, but even giving them tips on how to improve the property, which seems quite important to make sure that it does get rented out as much as possible.
Absolutely. We have an interiors team as well. So we're always doing, periodic upgrades to the units, doing different furnishings, and then our full in-house maintenance team is not just keeping up on things, but making sure they're looking at it through what would be our own eyes, or the eyes of the investor, to see if I was walking this property, what would we do?
That's great. Do you have a Taylor Swift rental?
We don't have a specific Taylor Swift rental,
Okay.
but there's always room for something, for sure.
You never know. What
It would
about
have
you,
to be
Tyler?
a multi-unit, so we can do one per album.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What about you, Tyler?
That's funny that you mentioned that. We're actually, I think this is going to go live this week. The Swifty Suite.
No way.
We have down here. I don't know if you know, but Taylor Swift just gave Destin a new plug in her song Florida. So I think we're gonna buy into that one a little bit.
Oh, you should. You should. Her power is unrivaled.
Agreed. But yeah, going along with what Sean said, everything. I mean, he hit all that right on. I would agree 100%. This is an investment at the end of the day for whomever, and you do have to set yourself apart, and that and owners love knowing that their property is going to be monitored 24/7. I'll give you guys kind of more of a plug because we're talking about these tech upgrades, and as far as monitoring goes 24/7, it's not just noise. So here the humidity is I mean, we're right on the water. It's very real. It's I can tell you in the summer it feels like 100%. Right now it's probably 80. If the ACs aren't upkept correctly on these units, if the guest leaves the door open over time, you have a risk of mold. And we've seen this with Minute as we get notified if there's a potential mold risk. That's been huge for us. And then we let the owners know, hey, we have an issue. Then we have to take action. We need to figure out where this is coming from. We need to find out. Sometimes it's just a weather strip that's gone bad. And we wouldn't have been able to catch that if this wasn't being monitored. We can see real time what the humidity level's been. We can see what it's been like last month, the last 12 months, and that's all documented. As far as a window breaking, if a window breaks, we get notified. Whether it's from a guest or, like Sean was saying, if they're upset that the door's not locked anymore, forbid, they're going for the window. And then even just as simple as an alarm, like if a fire alarm's going off, we don't have our fire alarms set up to notify us, but Minute recognizes the fire alarms going off and then notifies us of that. So those are kind of, I would say, less tangible advantages to using these techs.
Well, I mean, I could, yeah, I'm amazed. You're making this too easy. This actually gives us a great segue to our next section. Nathan's going to give us a quick overview of some of the features, and then we'll also leave some time at the end for Q&A. So feel free to drop any questions you all may have on the over on the right-hand side. You see a chat box. So we'll go over those questions in a bit. But Nathan, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, sure. It's a good segue because I think the thing that I hear the most is essentially peace of mind. That's the phrase that tends to come in during the demos, is that people talk about they're looking for peace of mind. So maybe they're coming in with a horror story about a party, or God forbid something even worse. I've heard some very crazy horror stories in my time with our customers. But essentially those intangible things, I think, are people wanting peace of mind, not even just as property managers, but as you both hinted at, for the actual homeowner as well, if you're managing for someone else, to give them peace of mind. And so that's our goal with all the features. And noise is what we're known for. We've also launched cigarette detection recently, which seems to be quite popular. So those tend to be the two that people come in for originally for a demo. But there are some other features, and so we definitely want to make sure you know what they are. They're listed here. I'm not going to go through the entire text of what they are, but I'm happy to kind of call them out here. So tamper detection, which lets you know if someone messes with the sensor itself. Occupancy monitoring, which is the crowd warning that Sean hinted at, letting you know if there are more people than expected. Temperature and humidity that Tyler just mentioned. These sensors do work outdoors and indoors, so you can choose where you'd like to put them, or in both locations. The security that Tyler mentioned is that motion detection, and then the mold risk, and then alarm recognition. Actually, Tyler mentioned most of these. The alarm recognition is going to listen for something like a non-intelligent smoke alarm that's going off that you would never know otherwise. But when it hears that, it lets you know that it's recognizing some sort of alarm happening inside the unit, so you can check it out. So those are the features as a whole. We talked a little bit about the mitigation of parties and what happens. So this shouldn't need a full review, but basically after a certain amount of time, if someone's too noisy, then we'll send you a message. If you're using an integration with the property management system that we integrate with, then we can send the guest a message as well. And so we have a mobile app, a web app as well. So here you see an example of the mobile app and what some of those notifications would look like. As you can see, the one thing I will call out here is that one of the things we do try to do is limit the prevention or limit the damage to a rental, right? Because we know parties can cause damage, like you see here, over $1,200. I think recent studies actually show that number is increasing, that the average claim has gone up to $1,600 for a party that happens in a short-term rental. Smoking is very similar. I think the average claim for a really bad smoking event where someone has caused substantial damage is about $1,620. So those are the types of things that we're trying to prevent and give you peace of mind that they're less likely to occur. As I mentioned, we do integrate with quite a few property management systems. We integrate directly with Airbnb as well. So if that's who you're using and you don't have a dedicated property management system yet, you can actually send an Airbnb message directly to a guest if they're being too noisy, for instance. So saves you time, saves you money, keeps those costs of labor down so that you're not having to have someone look out all the time. On that note, actually, I'll mention in a couple slides about sort of some after hours things. So stay tuned for that, since I saw we had a question in the chat about it. And then those more intangible things that we talked about. So alarm sounds happening, high temperatures, security. It's not what people tend to come in right away for a demo, but there are some customers that end up using those, as Tyler mentioned, and finding tons of value in them, much more than expected. One of the questions in the chat actually is about distinguishing broken window from a broken dish or something like that. So that's a good one to mention here. One of the features is intelligent enough to do a glass break detection, is what it's called. So what it's going to let you know is that it heard the sound of glass breaking. So it's not going to tell you this is a window versus a dish, a cup or something like that. It's just going to let you know that it's heard the sound of glass breaking. So it's something that you can be prepared for with your cleaning crew if there is a guest present, or if there's not a guest present, obviously a very big red flag that you need to send someone right away because there may be a break-in in progress. I mentioned that cigarette detection is our newest feature. So we now have an AI-powered detection specifically for that. So it's going to look out for cigarette smoke happening inside the unit and let you know. With the date and time stamp that provides, the key here is that you can now use that messaging as a reason to charge someone for that fee. So someone like an Airbnb that asks for more proof than maybe just a photo of cigarette butts. That it's very hard to prove cigarette smoke without something like this. So now you would have a date and time stamp specifically for that property, indicating exactly when cigarette smoke occurred, which we hear people use regularly to make sure they don't lose the battle of trying to prove that someone has been smoking inside the unit. I mentioned that it works outdoors. So if outdoor noise is your primary concern, you can install it outdoors. We'd usually recommend that you install it in a situation like this, where maybe it's not in direct rain, since that could affect maybe the noise readings, the sound of the rain on the unit, etc. But it is weatherproof. And so it'll hold up to the elements, heat, cold, rain, snow, but absolutely works well outdoors now as well, which I know was a big request that we had for a number of years. So we're really excited about that one. And then another question in the chat actually mentioned, and you guys chime in if you do have any input here, Sean and Tyler. Someone asked, do you actually have someone on call at 3 a.m.? I would say most of the people I meet with, either they don't have someone working like on the clock, but they have someone on call to handle this sort of thing at 3 a.m. But our hope is that they won't actually have to be handling it at 3 a.m. if we can handle it for them 9 out of 10 times. And then we do actually have a new feature called Call Assist that you can add to your minute plan. So we would then have someone on call for you at 3 a.m. And so if there is an issue, it would be sent to that team who would actually make a call from an actual human and not just AI, because we do have an option to send a call that's just an automated AI voice call. But this would be an actual human. They would try to resolve the issue for you, take notes, and provide a report about what the result was. So if you don't have anyone on call, maybe your operation's not quite big enough to justify that, then this is a really good option to add so that you don't have to wake up yourself at 3 a.m. to deal with issues. With that, I'll see if there are any other questions. I know Alondra's also been keeping tabs of the questions. So if there's anything I missed here, happy to answer questions.
Yeah, Nathan, we thank you so much for giving us the great overview. We did get a question regarding how many sensors are typically placed in a property.
Sure. So I would say the average person is usually purchasing one. We have two plan types. They're called Standard and Pro. With Standard, you're going to get a device at half price with each plan. With Pro, one is actually going to come for free. So I'd say the average customer is using Pro, which is the plan type that integrates with property management systems, and they're receiving that one for free. But there are a growing number of people who would put maybe one indoors and one outdoors. But basically, we would typically say one indoors for the average property is sufficient. If you have a very large property that has maybe an added game room or a family room or an additional sort of gathering space, that's when you might want to start considering adding more than one. But typically one indoors and or maybe one outdoors is great.
I'll agree with that. I mean, we found that the one is the primary thing, but for example, I have a property that we manage where we have one in the main area of the home, one in a garage game room, because that faces one area, one neighbor. And then the outdoor feature was, I have to say, I was one of the loud people about asking for the feature ad for the outdoor sensor, because I have it out by pools and things like that. Also in Nashville, a lot of the new builds are 3- and 4-story buildings with rooftop decks, and they are right up against the next one. So we've found that putting these sensors on the rooftop decks is just a huge, huge help. People think, oh, I'm back home, it's 3, 4 in the morning, we can go outside and party. That's not going to fly with the locals. And we talked about the intangibles. That's one of the biggest things. We feel very strongly about the idea of community and being good neighbors. That's one of the core tenets of our company, especially in an industry that can be viewed in a weird light that way. So we feel very strongly about making sure that these residential neighborhoods are still treated that way, and our neighbors are respected. That's their homes. These are the places people are raising their kids. We want to make sure that they're able to live their normal life without disturbance.
That's awesome. Any other questions from the chat, Alondra?
I think that's all we have for today. In fact, we're right on time too. I think those are the main questions that we had. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, if anyone does have an additional question that they'd like to pass along, or if you want one demo where you actually get to see the features, obviously feel free to reach out. You've got my email here on the slide. We also have a support team that's wonderful and can answer questions for you as well at hello@minute.com. So feel free to reach out to them if you prefer. But I'd be happy to give a one-on-one demo, or a member of my team could do so. So feel free to reach out if you do have any additional questions. Really appreciate our guests joining us today. It's been super informative, and very, very thankful that you gentlemen both took the time to join Alondra and I.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yes, same. Thank you, guys.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Bye now.
Bye-bye.